Hey, Jellyheads, and welcome to another episode of Last Coin at the Arcade. We are your hosts, Lucas Wilson, and guest host,
David Halstead. Glad to be back.
We're here to bring you a bi-weekly dose of gaming goodness, and tonight we are bringing to you Gone Home. A little late to the party we are, I admit. This came out, in the fall, I think. August, maybe? I'm not sure.
Yeah, August or a little earlier.
Actually, I have it right here. I think I can check. Yep, August 15th. Which is weird, because I feel like I heard about this more recently, but...
well, it's less than a year, and it's an indie game, so it's some take longer to catch on. I mean, but this one didn't.
It took off pretty quick.
Yeah.
So,
you get to these things when you get to them, you know?
Yeah, it happens. I mean, we try to keep it relevant to what's out there now, so people easily find us, but maybe since there's not as much info going on, maybe they'll find this anyway.
Well, personally, I've never been much of a current gamer. But yeah, I'm also not a very big gamer at all when it comes to, the big titles that, everyone's supposed to have played, right?
It really depends.
Well,
I've kind of, I've stopped playing your basic AAA titles, besides, some really good ones. Usually ones that are heavy on narrative.
Yeah. Well, for a long time, I played smaller games like Gone Home because I didn't want to invest too much time in gaming. Whereas, I get these big titles, and I'm compulsive, so I'll just keep playing.
Yeah, I've been stuck. I keep, whenever I have free time, I end up playing, Kerbal Space Program, but there's no end to that game, so it just sucks up my time. I feel like I might have to uninstall it, because I just keep playing. It's I'm almost to that thing, but it's my rover I made has to travel across this planet, and it keeps blowing up whenever it falls over a sand dune, so I have to keep sending a new one. That takes another 3 hours.
But it's an intellectual exercise.
Yes!
So tell us more about Gone Home.
All right, let's see here. Well, this game is produced by the Fulbright Company, a really tiny 4-person company in Portland, Oregon. They were a couple of founders, Steve Gaynor and Carla Simonja and Jonaman Nordhagen. All three previously worked for 2K Games on the Minerva's Den BioShock 2 DLC, which is actually considered the best part of BioShock 2, essentially, because it's the story is pretty much what it was kind of like in BioShock 1. Yeah, they were they ended up moving in all together in a house to save on cost and had an office in the basement, and then just worked on making this game, and then came out in August of 2013. It was originally prototyped on Amnesia: The Dark Descent's HP Lovecraft engine, which I can see why they would use that, because that game...
There's an HP Lovecraft engine?
Yeah, there's a game engine called the HP Lovecraft engine, which Amnesia is built on.
Why? What's about that?
It's probably just a name that designers made because it was meant for horror games.
Okay.
But they finally made it for the Unity game engine. I've heard that name bumped around a few times. They won a few awards.
I've played Amnesia, by the way.
Yes. Did you say you enjoyed that game?
Very much. I mean, that tends to be the kind of game I play.
Yeah, that's I guess similar. I've watched people online play it, because I'll have, sometimes depending on how slow a game I'm playing is, if it's not really much of an engaging story going on, I'm just kind of doing some mindless task, I'll have a gaming show going on at the same time. And lately there's one I've been watching that he's been playing lots of Amnesia stuff, especially custom games of it. So it seems like Amnesia runs on a similar concept where you're picking up clues and stuff, but there's monsters and everything that you run into at the same time. Am I right?
Yeah, they're pretty good freaky looking monsters too.
Yeah, there's a mouth that's just like the whole upper half of your torso.
It's freaky, and it's like it's the kind of game where it's like you're playing a game, and on screen you're like hiding in a closet or under a bed or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you hear the thing walking around outside looking for you, and eventually, if you don't make any noise, it'll go away, right?
Right.
But it's like you're in there, and you find that in reality you are holding your breath. There's no reason. But it's good at creating mystery and tension.
Which this game also happens
Of course,
to do.
the first thing I do when I see a monster in a game like this is I walk right up to it and let it get me because I want to check out the monster, see what it is. Like I did that with Slender, or it's like the first time we played Slender, you remember? I just walked right up to him and I'm like, all right, let's check this out.
Have you done that with Death Claws and Fallout?
Well, that's obviously, you know what I mean? That's not hiding. That's...
They're sometimes underground.
But yeah, I do like to check out the monsters. Like, ooh, here's something I haven't seen before. Like, playing Fallout and ran across those like things that are like a bunch of tentacles and they spit at you. They're really gross.
So I guess I'll give a little summary here off of Metacritic before we get into breaking this game down. Gone Home, the eldest daughter of the Greenbrier family, returns after a year abroad. She expects her parents and sister to greet her. Instead, she finds only a deserted house filled with secrets. Where is everyone? And what's happened here? Find out for yourself on Gone Home, a first-person game entirely about exploration, mystery, and discovery. The house is yours to explore as you see fit. Open any drawer or door to investigate what's inside. Piece together the mystery from notes and clues woven into the house itself. Discover the story of a year in the life of the Greenbrier family. Dig deep, go home again.
Yeah, sounds, that's like gripping. It's like, ooh,
Gripping,
what's going on?
Yes, this game is interesting because on initial experience at the very beginning, it feels like this might be a horror game. Assuming you know nothing about it. I mean, I saw a Let's Play of somebody playing it. I didn't really know anything about the game, and the person was playing it. I didn't know if it was horror or not. And the person in it was like kind of sneaking around, and they were kind of freaking out at things, and they were like scared to go into rooms because they thought something was going to jump out at them. But then they kind of slowly realized that it was like, oh wait, this is more of a mystery. What's going on here instead? I only saw like the first like 10 minutes of the game. Although you can play it in pretty much any order you want. I don't think they did the order that I did, which was I think kind of the order they expected you to go into rooms, more or less.
Yeah, I didn't think there was much of an option. I went...
You could have gone upstairs first instead of downstairs, but I like my nature when coming to certain games that have lots of story in it is to like explore every room where I am now and then move on to the next part.
I am exactly the same way,
yeah.
And I stayed downstairs.
I went to the first open door downstairs and just went and looked at everything.
Right. And then later I went upstairs. Let's talk about that initial impression. You're at this house. It's mysterious. The lights are off. It's raining. There's a thunderstorm outside. And I was playing it with my headphones on. So it was like every time there was a thunder crack, it was just like this ambient atmosphere.
Yeah.
That I was actually afraid to go into rooms,
The thunder sometimes would just, by coincidence, like happen when I would pick up a certain object. Like I think one time I picked up one of the Father's book and looked at it, and all of a sudden I was like, what did I do? I mean, should we give the audience a little bit of context as to what's going on in this? This is going to be super spoiler heavy, by the way. This is a very story-driven game. It's really nothing but pure, just explorative
really
story.
No way around that.
Yeah, there's no way around it. So get out if you don't want to know anything. Stay in if you do.
Honestly, is the best way to play the game, not knowing anything.
Yeah, I didn't know anything.
Because, let the spoilers begin here, it really does take a turn that you do not expect. It's not the story you would expect to see.
No, yeah. I was starting to make like things going on in my head, like, what happened here? Like, you first show up on the stairs of this big giant house. There's a message that's played, that's your character, Katie. You're playing this girl, Katie, saying, oh, I'm back from Amsterdam. Don't worry to come pick me up. I'll just take a cab over. And she thinks everybody's home. And she arrives, and there's just a note on the door that says, I'm gone. Don't bother finding me, kind of basically. and it says signed Sam, and I thought Sam meant like a guy's name, and I was like, who's this Sam guy?
Yeah, same thing happened to me. And then I like when you play the answering machine, you hear the message you left, and then you hear the next message, and it's like this girl crying, right?
Yeah, there's 2 messages of this girl crying, which I then find out is, what is her name? Lonnie, that's right.
Lonnie.
Yeah, it was Lonnie. Which I realized that afterwards, so I want to go back and listen to it, because it was like, I wanted to know what that girl sounded like.
At first, there is some talk of like, oh, this is called the Psycho House. People died here. And you're like, and then the father's writing books about like conspiracies and time travel, and you're like, ooh.
Yeah. First, it was kind of weird. What clues you into the family really is like, there's a painting on the wall, then it was like, oh, Sam's a sister, and then it shows all the parents and whatnot. In the first floor, while I'm looking around, like it's talking about the house apparently got passed to your father from his uncle, who was like this super rich doctor.
But reclusive and creepy.
Yeah, reclusive and creepy. I don't know how he died. It's never explained. It just says, they just call it the psycho. I guess he might have gone
Looney Tunes
or something. But nothing really was evident about that. And there was one weird note that it was like, I found a note about like the wiring of the house, but it looked like it was talking about medical stuff. So I thought maybe the dad had cancer or something. Like they had this set up, like I was going to walk into the parents' bedroom and there's going to be like a hospice bed or something like that. But that never came up. Maybe I misread the note, but the dad is not dying. He's just, what you first reading is a failed author who writes reviews for electronics, which is great because it's like the 90s, so it's all VCRs and laser discs.
Oh yeah, I started to laugh when you said this. The people who made this are from Portland, because I can't think of Portland without thinking of Portlandia now. It's just, they're just connected in my mind, and the fact that it's set in the 90s.
That was very nostalgic, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
we weren't the age of these characters in the 90s. We were in our childhood days.
I found it nostalgic for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah, because it was like, oh yeah, I remember my house being like this. You know,
I'll never remember my house being like
oh, not that giant house, although
it's
I did.
a mansion,
well,
man. I lived in a decent-sized house.
Yeah, we didn't have any secret passages.
Secret passages. Actually, I had a friend who lived in a pretty big house, and they did have a secret passage.
I want a house with secret passages, just for my own amusement. Anyway.
That's why I'm into building houses right now. It's like I want to build like my own like New England Gothic manor.
But it's like you go into like the living, but you go into like a living room, and it's kind of got like there was a room in our house that was called the den that just had like green carpet and fake wood paneling. There was like a room like that in this house, and it had like this big tube TV and VHS tapes on shelves everywhere, and like recordings of the X-Files and everything.
Yes. There are things that are just like joyfully nostalgic. I like the fort made out of couch pillows.
It was a fort.
Remember the one room where it was like the media room?
Yeah. How did I miss the pillow fort? I missed a pillow fort?
It was small. They just pulled off the couch pillows and made this little thing, right?
Oh, no, I didn't see that. That's weird.
That was like, I did that when I was a kid.
Yeah, so did I. We took all the sheets in the house and like made very complicated dwellings of pillows and sheets.
What is that? Why do we want to do that when we're kids?
I don't know.
We want to be in these little tented out spaces in our living room.
I don't know. There's something appealing about having like this own private secret space.
I guess so.
To get a little back on track with what's going on with this story is, and essentially the mechanics of this game is that you are trying to piece together what happened to your family while you've been gone for a year. You've been backpacking around Europe and just got back. Your only contact with them is sending them postcards, and like nobody, like you haven't really talked to them at all. So you don't really know what's been going on at home. So you start you start finding out that your sister, and it's kind of interesting because like, you know how like you have like papers and stuff lying around the house that are like even from like last year, like, and it's kind of like that where like you'll find like this crumpled up piece of paper tucked behind a waste paper bin, and that happens. Like, you don't pick that up, and it finds out it was like a note that's...
But I rarely pin them and place them around the house in a chronological order.
Well, there's no escaping that game reason, but...
I know.
It is laid out in a nice way that doesn't feel too much like that, but... You just get the impression that your sister is having a bad time adjusting to a new town. She's being your typical bratty teenager, really getting into the punk scene. Your father is a writer.
Yes, the punk tapes.
Oh yeah, I don't think I found all of them, but
I found a bunch of them. I feel like I found almost everything in
I
that
feel like I
place.
found all of them but one. I came across a player and a cassette case, but I never found the cassette. I think it was in her bedroom. Couldn't find it.
Oh, I found that one. It was like in another room.
Oh, was it?
Or it was in the... I don't remember, but I know whenever I found a cassette player, I was like, ooh, I'm going to find the cassette. Because I listened to all of those tapes.
Of course. I know. I was like, when I popped these, I was like, all right, I know Dave's enjoying this. Because I know you like punk.
Yes. When I was 15 years old and discovered punk rock music, that was a good time.
Well, it seems that's the same case for Sam. And you also find out that...
Although, Sam's story took another turn there.
You find out that also that your dad he writes reviews for stuff, but that's just to pay the bills.
Is
but
the mother having an affair?
I was going to get there second. That was the second thing I was going to get to. The father, through things you're finding out, wrote 2 books that went nowhere. The first one did...
When he was younger, too. Like, this was like back in the 70s and it's 90s. Today.
Yeah. You come across his office, which is basically the office of what his uncle was to use. It's like this library and whatnot. And you see the typewriter all set up and piles of books of his failed literary career. And now you can tell, and he's kind of like, and you see like bottles of alcohol everywhere. And he's just, and notes between his wife and her friend that this guy's just kind of going downhill. And because of that, she's feeling distant from him and starting to have this thing for this guy named Ranger Rick.
Yeah.
Because she works for the forestry department.
There's all these notes that have to do with the mother about how great this ranger is where she works.
Yeah,
this new guy who showed up.
Yeah, by the end, you end up finding like it seems like it might be getting resolved because you start finding notes from this new publisher that's like, dude, we found your work. It's like amazing. We have these readers really love these like really campy spy novels, and he's like, all of a sudden he's got republished and it's got an awesome cover, and it's like he's getting good notes. And he's like, yeah, I'm writing a new book, guys. You should check it out. And then you see like a note, and you find out that the parents are gone away on a week-long vacation, and you find out that vacation was to a couple's therapy retreat. So they're trying to salvage the relationship.
Yeah.
So what happened was the week prior to you arriving, your parents are gone on this vacation and left your sister to her own devices.
And your sister ran off with her gay lover. And when you went away, you didn't know she was gay. So that's what you have to discover. This is like the creepiest way to find out.
The side story is you figuring out what's going on with your parents, but then the main story, especially with the narrations, is you coming across what's been happening to your sister, who has slowly been realizing that she has feelings for this girl she met at school, and then they become super duper close. It's kind of what the whole thing's about. It was kind of an interesting, reading these notes.
It was, and it's like, I came into this thinking it was going to be a horror game, and I was going to uncover this mystery, and there's this little teenage lesbian romance that I got completely wrapped up in. I was
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I thought it... Yeah, it kind of took me out of... I didn't expect that. It took me completely by surprise. You find key items which bring up a diary entry that is a voiceover of your sister Sam talking about her life. I don't know if I got all of them or not.
I definitely got all of them.
Because I heard that there's one that's hard to find, but number 24, I think. But in the end, the voiceover is actually from the future as you read the diary that she left for you up in her makeshift dark room in the attic. But of course, it's the mid-90s, so when she comes out to her parents, they are less than thrilled and just try to deny that it's actually a thing. That made
me so sad.
Yeah.
That's our lifetime, man.
Which is actually, I think...
That's the stupidest thing. I'm sorry.
That's what I think that might be playing a factor in why there is so many negative ratings for this game.
Really?
This is...
even though they might not be saying it?
What they bash the story, saying it's just an awful, poorly written, and they're like, oh, they're just writing the gay and lesbian train, that's why the critics are loving it. That's pretty much what all the negative comments are coming across as.
No, this is a fascinating, good story.
Yeah, the critics give it all... They don't go any lower...
If it was a hetero romance, it would...
Well, there's two things.
It would be different. different, but it'd still be well written.
There's two things I think that's going on here. In my speculation, that a lot of these people who tried this game out were young men, probably in their teens. They were expecting like a horror game, this manly man guy going around solving this horror mystery. They got upset that they paid $20 for this, a romance story about gay women.
And I can kind of understand that, and that's not an anti-gay or anti-woman thing. It's just kind of like, I thought I was sitting down to get one thing, and I got something else. But that is actually what I love about this game.
So did I. I didn't have any problem with that. It's usually like games of like some dude just shooting shit, and I'm getting tired of that.
I know. I'm playing games, and it's like the most boring part of the games these days for me is the fighting or shooting aspect. I mean, I think I find hand-to-hand combat games more interesting than shooters.
I enjoy playing them from time to time. Like, I still hop on Titanfall and whatnot because it's a little bit different. But I'm finding myself that I am more increasingly drawn to games which have a significant amount of story in it. And a game like such as BioShock Infinite, I really enjoyed that story, and it was basically, I felt like, to me, it was basically just like, oh my gosh, the shooting is getting in the way of me figuring out what the hell's going on with Elizabeth, and what the hell's going on with the city.
And there was an interesting thing you said to me when you had just played the game, is that you said no other media could tell a story this way.
No, because a book...
And I think that's the key thing.
A book or a movie, you have to go through it in a linear pace. I mean, there's been attempts to try and diversify it. I know that's happened, and there's such things as like choose your own adventure stories and whatnot. But this really does present things in a totally different fashion, where you yourself, at your own pace, are discovering what the story is. And it's not being told directly to you. Yes, there are those diary entries, but that's just like a whole different sack of potatoes.
Yeah, the fact that you're playing in this space, you're going through this house, you're seeing things. It's not just like the stories that are read to you. It's like you see things like written on the wall somewhere. You know? You go into your sister's room and you find like a doll that was hers, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, the stuffed dinosaur. Even said it on the tag. It said like Steggy, and a nice touch. But it's not like the story's being directly told to you, like it's through exposition and whatnot. Although the journal entries do a little tiny bit of that to fill in some gaps, like the major part. But the fact that I've pieced together the entire part of the father and the mother's lives just from inference of information. And that was, stuff like that is deeply satisfying because my brain is working on multiple levels to make different connections rather than just being straight fed it to me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a reason like why I can like why I would prefer something like the show Community, because there's so many levels to the jokes that are going on that you have to connect different places rather than other comedies that just straight up tell you the joke right to your face.
Yeah.
I enjoy being able to be given the clues, and then in my head, when I figure it out, that feels so mentally stimulating. I don't know how to explain it. But
like when you're reading a detective novel, it's like, that it's like keep turning those pages. The detective in the story is going to put all this together, and it's interesting how the detective unravels the story, but you're still going through that character to solve a mystery, even though you might go off and think about it, and that's... trying to figure out the mystery for yourself is part of the fun of reading mystery story, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's what this is. This is figuring out the mystery for yourself. You're the detective. You're walking around. You're finding clues. You're filling in the blanks. You're having an experience where it's like when you find that secret passage and you're like, you go down there and then all of a sudden the light bulb blows and you're in complete darkness and you're like, or at least I was.
I don't remember. I heard about that, and I don't remember that happening.
That totally happened to me.
But I can feel it, because sometimes it was even kind of creepy, because sometimes you would hear your character breathe, and I thought it was somebody in the room. And I was like, oh wait, no, that's me.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Going into dark places, and it's in a way, it's not like you're really walking around this house. It's a simulation, right?
Yes.
It's a video game. But your ability to put yourself mentally in that space, in the moment, a movie would be difficult to do that because you don't control the camera. You're not controlling where it's going. And,
I mean,
and a movie cuts from place to place where this is like you're always just right there. It's happening in real time. This was a video game that I was playing that really made me think about storytelling and story structure. And video games do have sort of a bad reputation, would you say?
Yeah, they still haven't gotten out of that stigma of it's like this is just for children.
Yeah.
This is all just for straight pure entertainment. There's no intellectual level put into it, which is games like this would be a great argument as to why this can be considered an art form, although each new form of art has gone through some similar situation where I remember writing a paper, like one of our short discussion papers in art history, discussing about how for quite a while photography was not considered art. That other like artists and stuff, like painters and stuff, they looked down on photographers because they were just pointing a camera and capturing an image rather than making it yourself with your hands. And now, without a question, people consider photography art.
Yes.
And then you would say the same thing for movies made in progression and stuff, although I think that took a quick, faster turn than usual.
It was funny. I started in college hearing the argument about video games being art, and my reaction was, I just always thought of them as art. I took it for granted that they were an art form.
That it never was like a question in my mind. It was like, yeah, of course it is. Look what goes into it. I mean, like, yeah, there are some just purely mindless stuff, but then again, what about friggin', I don't want to go there again. Give me a different movie that's not Transformers. Some generic action movie, like, I don't know, like Transporter or something like that. They're gonna go like, yeah, that's a movie. It's still art, even though it's just mindless and stupid action fighting stuff. And it was like, why can't that be the case with video games? Just because they're interactive makes them disqualified for that consideration?
It's like, I don't understand why someone would go to an effort to exclude video games as an art form. It doesn't make sense to me to actually make that argument, go to that effort.
And I think part of the reason is that it feels like a good chunk of the members of the video game community themselves kind of fight against that in a way. Like maybe sometimes something in a video game happens, like, that was a really questionable thing. Like, why did they put like a weird rapey thing in there? And that's kind of stupid. And the people are like, calm down, guys. It's a game. Come on. What are you criticizing it for? It's just a game. And because people who even play them they're just games guys. And they're like, no, they're not just games. When there's story elements being put into this thing, it kind of transcends to a whole different level.
I've had experiences in games that have stayed with me.
Yes.
For a long time. I'm not just like, this really cool thing happened. No, I was playing Red Dead Redemption, and there were some like, I guess you'd call them, what do I do here moments. Where there was like this guy in Mexico, and he was this revolutionary leader, but he was a scumbag, and he got your friends killed. But if you took him out, you were creating a power vacuum for other corrupt people. Even though he was corrupt, he was also like still idolized by the revolutionaries. And there's a moment where you're alone with him in the desert, and you can just straight kill him. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, I left the guy there alive and just ran off and never went back to Mexico. But there was that moment where I'm just like, does this video game, does this character in the story, do I let him live? Or is like, what's right here? What's wrong? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I know.
It's like, would I be doing it to stop something bad from happening, or would I only create worse things that would happen? So I just kicked him off my horse and went back to the States. Decided it was just like not up to me to decide. It was just like eventually people realize he's corrupt and someone will kill him.
Yeah, definitely. Once in a while, like a movie or a book or a game will just have a story that, like, as soon as I'm finished, it's like it sticks to me, and then I won't stop thinking about it for like a week. And this is definitely one of those games where it's like it was just a different kind of story experience that I don't usually get that often. I mean, Stanley Parable stuck with me. BioShock Infinite stuck with me. The Mass Effect games stuck with me. Like all these various story elements and stuff. It's just, I love story. That's actually a thing for me too. In Halo.
Right.
I enjoy playing like the campaign like on my own because I will try and absorb every amount of the story I can. I will even just start a battle's done, and after the battle I just start wandering around what portion of the map I've just unlocked and look at everything and just like try and piece together the story of what's happened to this place and what's going on, and reading little signs here and there and checking up on looking out for the distance and finding all these little story tidbits that the designers put in themselves that usually people just kind of blow by because all they care about is how high their achievement score is going to be. And I'm going like, oh man, why did this happen? Is it because of this?
Right. Yeah, I mean, as someone who loves reading and movies and just any narrative elements is what I absorb myself in.
All right.
Video games have been there too, always right along it, even though the stories have definitely gotten a lot better. And this offered a new way to experience a story for me, which I delighted in. And it's like, if you want to know whether you will like this game or not, it's like, well, do you like a good story?
Yeah. So what do you think of the story, Dave? Thumbs up, thumbs down, or do you give it just a meh?
Thumbs way up. I mean, what have we been talking about
the whole time? Yeah, I give it
40 minutes.
I'm like, yeah, 2 thumbs way up here. I really enjoyed it. Very, very exploratory. I didn't think it was, some people on here thought it was really some sort of shitty teen romance thing, and I think because they just weren't the right demographic, they were pretty upset.
You need to look closer at the details.
Yeah. All right. What about the graphics, Dave? How do you feel about that?
Graphically, I do like this house. I really like the design
it's
of this
a
house.
simple. The graphics aren't next gen, that's for sure, but they're not terrible.
They're not overdoing it. You don't need better graphics.
It's all pretty much in like getting to a point where lighting and stuff in games is playing a major point rather than the fidelity of the image.
Yeah, and light just.
I mean, it's on the same level.
Light in this game.
I mean, it's on the same graphical level as like Amnesia and stuff, so it's not.
Yeah.
It's
Amnesia had a bunch of stuff that was like that really glossy, slick-looking
stuff.
Oh,
yeah.
And Amnesia also had anatomically correct corpses.
Well, there's no corpses in this game, just photos of people.
Yeah.
So I give
I give it a thumbs up because it's like, it's not about like, oh, how much texture and detail there. It's about, oh, the lighting and the atmosphere are pitch perfect.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly.
And the sound design, especially with headphones on. Did you play with headphones?
No, I did not. Just in case there was a horror element. I didn't want to be jump scared, but I might go back and play again with the, now that I know there's a commentary mode and there were some things that I missed. I might go back and play the game again with the headphones on.
There's just so much rich little details.
I know what you're talking about. I hate jump scares, so just in case there was a horror element, which is kind of funny because I came across their last meeting place that you hear about in like a note or a diary was in this crawl space. And you go in there, and there's like a pentagram set up with like your great uncle's photo set there and a few of his like belongings. And it was like they were trying to do a seance. And I was like, is this when the ghosts come out?
Yes. All along the way, right up to the end, I was like, there's going to be a ghost. There's going to be a ghost. Even though the story is really engrossing, it's like that kept me on the edge of my seat.
So the way that there was like that, the attic was locked and had like the, even though it was a dark room, it had the red lights. I was like, oh man, I'm going to go up there and find my sister's corpse, aren't I? She killed herself, right? I was afraid
That was a possibility. That was a very real possibility.
Yeah, where the story was going, I was starting to think. I was like, did she kill herself? Oh my god. Gameplay, that's right. Game mechanics.
Oh, yeah.
Very simple. I mean, there's nothing bad about it. There's no glitches, nothing wrong. You pick stuff up, move it around, look at it, put it down. And you WASD, you move around. I mean, that's about it.
I mean, when you get right down to it, there was no flaws in it. There was nothing where I was like, oh, this is a glitch, or I never had difficulty in any of the mechanics of the gameplay, where it's like, oh, if only I could get that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, it was simple. It kept it so you could... I think that had something to do with really being able to immerse yourself in the atmosphere of the place, and the story is that you weren't looking at the keyboard going, oh wait, this... I have to up, down, jump, you know? It was almost, despite the like tension of, am I going to see a ghost?
Yeah.
It was also sort of relaxing. You didn't have to think about the gameplay mechanics, you know what I mean?
I mean, they weren't, I feel like I can't really rate gameplay. I mean, like, I guess all in the sense of like hunting around and finding the story and the way that's presented, how it's laid out and how kind of natural, like picking and finding up all this stuff is, I think I would give gameplay a thumbs up. And
I think about games that I guess were closer to this vein, that were older, that I played. A lot of point and click where it's like, to move around, you've got to bring the mouse to the side of the screen and like turn, you know what I mean? Click, and then it's like just a new still
like,
shot.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Those really old, they're like late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, and oh god, it's I wish they would. Some of those were interesting, but I won't go back and play them unless they update them so
you can look around.
Movement. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it coming from that point of view, it's like this is the way to do that kind of game, you know?
Yeah. So, Dave.
Yeah, thumbs up.
What's your final score?
Let's see. I give this 5 punk rock cassette tapes out of 5.
It's not how we rate things anymore, but okay.
Wait, you don't?
How many coins are you going to give it?
You rate by coins now.
You told me, like, I said that one time, and I was like, how many last of your coins? And you were like, oh, I like that. You should keep doing that, Lucas.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree, yes. But for some reason, I forgot about it.
But go ahead, fine.
Now.
You give it 5 punk rockers out of 5.
Punk rock cassette tapes out of 5.
Cassette tapes. I think, well, I wish I could, my complaint is that this game is not long enough. Although I don't see how you would make it longer, given what the story is. I just wish there was more. I could have, I didn't want sitting.
If anything, this makes me... When I was done playing this game, I was like, that was cool. I really want to play a horror game now. It's like, I felt like I wanted to do something more.
And I think...
That's my only complaint.
$20 might be a little too much for this, maybe. It's more of maybe a $15 game rather than a $20 game, given its length. But at least... that $20 will go towards whatever they make next. So hopefully it's as engrossing as what this story was, and then I'll enjoy it and hopefully look forward to it.
I hope to see a bigger game from them in the future.
So I too would give this 5.
You can say coins, just ignore me.
I would give this all 5 of my coins.
All right. Well, Lucas, I was basically begging you to play this game and review it with me since
I just had like 3 games that I had to get through with the other guys before I had free time. Although that means that like 2 months go by, but yeah, you did text me. You were like, Lucas, I want to talk about this game. You gotta do it. Well, that was our thoughts. Why don't we see what the critics have to say? And now the critics, not the users. The users can go suck a rock.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I would say too that this is a game for a more mature audience.
Yeah.
So an immature audience, no matter what your age.
Let's see. We usually start with the lowest and go to the top. So let's see. Who gave it the lowest score? It was Eurogamer. Gave it 60 out of 100. As a statement of intent, Gone Home is laudable. As a technical exercise in game narrative, it's compromised. But it definitely has its strength and are worthy of study. But you can't escape the sense that Gaynor Zimonja Nordhagen started on this project with the grand designs for games as a storytelling medium, yet without a story they desperately wanted to tell. I remember they were making changes right up until the last minute.
Really?
Yep, I listened to it on the Indoor Kids thing. Joystick gives this an 80 out of 100. Gone Home offers its revelations and quietness and purity, and that's why you'll leave it with a spring in your step. Turning the world into a storyteller is nothing new in video games, but I think I've gotten to know it much better here, in its pajamas and inside, without all the noise. And finally, highest score by US Gamer, 100 out of 100. Its unconventional, non-violent subject matter and gameplay also skillfully and confidently prove that not all games need an attack button to be enjoyable and interesting. And given the growing sense of wariness a lot of us have been feeling with the super violent experiences, that's something that should be celebrated. And it is a 86 overall. Alef,
Yeah.
thanks for bringing this game to my attention and discussing with me today.
Glad I could do that.
Well, Jellyheads, thanks for listening to this episode of Last Coin at the Arcade. We've been your host, Lucas Wilson, and your guest host,
Dave Halstead.
If you enjoyed this episode, may I suggest you hop on our website at psychojellyfish.com to find this and other podcasts, such as No U-Turns of the Drive-In or Flapdoodle Forum. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes and the podcast app Stitcher. Please rate and review. It really does help with the show. And if you're a fan and you want to help spread the madness, give us a like at facebook.com/psychojellyfish or follow us on Twitter at Jellycast. And if you have any thoughts, words, comments, or questions, or perhaps a game you think we should review, or perhaps if you've got something to say about this game gone home yourself, leave it to us at email at psychojellyfish.com or drop it in the comment section. It's been a fun one, folks.
Hey, good night, gentle listeners.
Keep it shackled. Dave, I only recorded an hour and 10 minutes, and we're at like 50 minutes, so we gotta I only have an hour and 10 minutes worth of gameplay.
Well,
so
you're gonna edit a bunch of this, man.